Hello everyone, Lisa Sabaniak here from lifelikeyoummeanit.com, and we're again talking about our next coping strategy to be able to deal with anxiety. So if you haven't already, go on over to my IGTV. I've got loads of videos there in a whole series. There's probably close to 20 of them now, coping with anxiety tips. If you're watching on YouTube, then check out my whole playlist on this, and of course I've got all of the videos up on my Facebook business page as well. So hello to everybody who has joined. Thank you so much for joining me today. So what I'd like to talk to you about today for coping with anxiety is creating new hobbies. Now, bear with me because I know obviously with COVID and coronavirus, we're all stuck inside. And so some of the hobbies that you would like to experiment with, you would like to do, or maybe some of the hobbies that you were doing that were helping you quite well to cope with anxiety in your life are no longer accessible to you. But rest assured, even you being at home, there will be different hobbies that you can start getting into. And they may not be hobbies that you want to keep afterwards because, life shifts, evolves, it grows. And so once we're all back outside again and able to do what we want and go where we want, when we want, you might find that the hobbies that you create during this time no longer are sufficient or needed, or perhaps you want to look at them in a different way. So for example, I know a few people, my mom included, who has taken up some painting. Now, in my mom's case, she had actually gone to start taking some painting lessons or drawing lessons with some friends of hers before COVID ever struck. And so, she's not naturally an artist, and I'm not naturally gifted in that way either. So I can completely relate here. Without having a class to go to, she really didn't know what to do and didn't necessarily have a lot of supplies or anything like that. So long story short, she ended up getting some paint by numbers. And I know that that sounds really childish, but if you've actually seen any of these paint by numbers, some of them are absolutely incredible, right? There are clearly adult versions of paint by numbers. And she's actually created such a beautiful piece that she is going to frame it and put it up in her house because it's just beautiful. Now, once COVID-19 is over and done with and the lockdown is done and she's able to get back to her painting lessons, will she continue with the paint by numbers stuff? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe she'll exchange it for actually going back to a class. But the point is, with a little experimentation, you might be able to find some really great hobbies that help you to minimize your stress, decrease your anxiety, and bring the focus back in on the here and now, or just clear your mind altogether. So when you're looking for hobbies, obviously you're going to keep in mind the price point for them, but keep in mind what style of learner you are. So what I mean by that is we tend to be either auditory learners, so we hear things and we remember them, or we are visual learners, so we have to see it. So, maybe if you were learning in school, if you remember, you had to draw out a bunch of mind maps or see like a visualization of something. And the other way is kinesthetic, so a feeler. Those tends to be people that work with their hands, right? So they need to build something to be able to remember how it works and understand it, right? So those types of things are really important because when you're looking for a new hobby, chances are you're going to do best with something that is pulling out your strengths. So if you are an auditory learner, for example, then you are going to choose something that has to do with hearing, right? Maybe your hobby ends up being audiobooks or listening to music or things like that, right? Or hearing people talking, hearing people singing, maybe you're singing as well, because that's quite auditory as well, hearing your own voice, whatever it is. Maybe you decide that you're going to actually create some stories and you're going to say them on YouTube. I've got a couple of friends that are doing this, actually, bedtime stories on YouTube, which is fantastic, right? Maybe that becomes your thing. If you are a visual learner, then obviously your stuff is going to be more things that you can see. So maybe you want to get into more artistry that you can actually see, or whatever it is. Maybe you get into decorating your place if you could do that in your budget, right? Maybe you get into making some arts and crafts and things like that, right? Something that is very visual for you. And then the kinesthetic is the doing. And so this tends to have a lot of layover with your visual types of learners, right? People who are kinesthetic, they tend to be crafty, right? They like to build things, craft things, create things, drawing, writing, those types of things as well. And so oftentimes you can merge those two, right? You can do painting. That's kinesthetic and visual. You end up with seeing all of the colors, seeing your design come to fruition, and then you've got the actual doing part where you actually have to create it, right? So, I mean, there are so many different things out there that are considered hobbies that you could literally turn anything into a hobby. And the point is finding something that works for you, that's going to allow you to feel peaceful and calm, to forget that mental chatter that's going on in your head, worried about this or that or the other, right? And instead focus on just this project, this task, just this moment, right? Something that just clears away everything else. And if you can do that on a budget or within whatever your budget is, so you're not exacerbating any anxiety that you might have over finances, for example, or time or anything like that, then you just might surprise yourself and find that you end up sticking with this hobby or growing it in some way once you end up out of lockdown. And it's also possible that there'll be some very, very crafty people out there that will figure out how to turn their hobby into a business and actually earn some income from that. And yet it started by trying to find something that helps you to cope with anxiety, minimize your stress, and become calm and present in this moment. So how great would that be if you end up with something like that out of this? I hope that helps. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Please feel free to put your comments in. Let us know what's working for you. I love to hear your stories about how you're trying different things, how you're maybe trying some of the suggestions that I have, but tweaking them so that they work perfectly for you. And keep in mind, that's what this is all about, is really giving you a bunch of different options that will inspire you to go out and actually start to experiment with things that can help you cope with your anxiety. Some of these things may be things that you've heard a million times before. And as Marie Forleo says, everything is figure outable. And her first chapter of that book, it literally talks about how if you've got something that is coming up and you keep kind of ignoring it, it might be something to look at for why, right? So if you know all of these strategies already that I've been talking about and you're not implementing them, that would be a really great question to ask yourself, is why, right? What's happening there? Is there perhaps an opportunity here for you to try something that you know in theory, but you haven't actually been putting into practice for quite some time? Bless. I will see you tomorrow. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.